Welcome to Inside Sim Racing and our review of the Logitech G29. I'm Darren Ganji here with my co-host John Sable. Before we get started, or actually to get started, we're going to compare the G29 to the G27. Basically talk about the differences and then talk about the similarities, give some opinion as we go, and then we're going to get some pros and cons, wrap things up. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. One of the biggest differences is now all the buttons and the D-pad are on the G29 rim versus on the G27 you had the shifter, you had the 6 buttons here on the wheel, plus the paddles obviously, and then the D-pad and 8 more buttons are on the standalone shifter. And then there's also the DFGT style button, so you got the dial and the up and down plus minus button. So what do you think of the buttons, John?
I really like them. The G27 with the 6 buttons on the wheel and then other ones on the shifter, it just didn't quite get it done, where this has plenty of buttons.
Has everything.
It does.
All on the wheel. So yeah, we didn't really even run, we just got the shifter today, so it's not going to be really part of this review. We're going to do a standalone review of that. But we did try it with the G27 shifter, which was compatible. You can watch one of our older shows. We talk about that. So is there anything you didn't like about this button configuration or the overall look?
I will say I do feel like the look's a little cheaper than the G27.
A little toy-like.
It's a little toy-like with the blue accents and even having the black metal. I just feel like it's not quite as nice looking or real.
Not as racy.
Not as racy or realistic looking as the G27 did.
I agree. Okay, so next up, let's move on to the pedals. Pedals are identical to the G27, except the G29 comes with a brake mod. That's what we're calling it. They didn't call it anything specific. You were calling it a durometer?
Well, yeah, durometer testing, it's because it's a rubber stop.
Right.
And that's testing the rubber.
So what'd you think of it?
I actually liked the pedals quite a bit more than G27. I think they had really good progression. About halfway through, you started to get on that rubber stop, and it had really good progression until full braking.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it a lot too. I have tried a lot of different mods on the G27, so it really does compare to like a Nixum or a GTE mod. That's the biggest difference in the pedals. Otherwise, they are identical. Yeah. Same exact pedal set. Let's move on to the paddles.
Yeah, the paddles have been updated slightly for the G29 versus G27. The actual paddle throw has shortened up about a 1/4 inch we measured from the G27. Mm-hmm. And also, I feel like the paddles have been dampened a little bit and have a little bit of a nicer feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. They definitely feel, and this is a brand new G27, by the way. I mean, this thing has not been used, so we're comparing apples to apples here. Yeah, the throw was a 1/2 inch total, right around a 1/2 inch on the G27, and about a 1/4 inch now on the G29. And I do like the throw. I like the feel a little bit better as well. So there's another difference. Next up is the software and drivers. For the G29, it has a brand new software suite. I guess you could call it. It's the Logitech gaming software. And you're not using the standard driver like you were on the G27, where you go into the game controller properties, and then you make your adjustments there. What little you can do is done through the Logitech G software, and the only thing you can do is set the degrees of rotation, and then you're supposed to be able to like remap some of these buttons. And I pulled up there was an Assetto Corsa profile and a Project Cars profile that came up. But I tried, and basically you could drop and drag things onto the wheel. So let's say you want this to be your horn button. You drop the horn, which is just the H key on the keyboard. So it's like a keyboard to joystick mapping. You would think it would pick it up by default in Assetto Corsa. But when I did that, Assetto Corsa did not read that at all. I thought the button wasn't working in Assetto Corsa until I went back and remapped it as default, then went and mapped it, and it mapped it as like button 24. And it worked fine. What about the rim shapes?
Rim shapes, more or less the same feel. The shape has changed a little bit. Now I have a D shape versus a standard round rim, but same diameter size. And leather-wise, if it is leather, it's very...
Leather?
Yeah.
Supposedly it's genuine leather.
That's what they say. If it is, it's still very thin. Again, it feels very similar to G27.
Identical, and it even has the same markings. The only real difference is the D shape, and then it's got this blue stripe at the top where the G27 doesn't have anything. So, and then the last difference is the G27 has full functionality on the PS3, shifter and everything, and the G29 basically operates as a DFGT. Now let's talk about things that are identical. Let's start with the resolution on the pedals.
Yeah, this was disappointing. We were really hoping that Logitech would have upped the resolution on the pedals so you can get more consistent braking, and that isn't the case. It's still 256 steps.
Yeah, which I think is considered 8-bit.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, like Thrustmaster, if you plug in Fanatic Club Sport pedals standalone, you get 1024 steps, or I believe it's considered 10-bit.
Okay.
So, yeah, we were disappointed to see it's the same resolution. We were hoping for an upgrade there, but that was not the case. So next up, we're going to talk about the shifter compatibility.
Yeah, the G27 shifter works with the G29 on the PC and PS4, but it did not work on the PlayStation 3.
You just lose the D-pad and the button functionality on both the PC and the PS4, but it does work as a shifter. And again, we'll get to this one later, which I'm assuming is fully compatible. Well, not PS3, but as we mentioned, PS4, PC. Same exact shift lights. It's got the shift rev lights up here, and they're identical. Another thing that's identical is the gear drive mechanism.
Yeah, same gear drive mechanism, same casing. As far as the internals and how this wheel functions, it all appears to be very much the same or very close to the same.
Like this, supposedly they've changed the encoder, and it's got Hall effect sensors. I believe in the pedals, versus potentiometers. At least I think that's the case.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, but that's really the only difference. As far as how it performs and feels, they feel identical. Same exact clamp mechanism. As a matter of fact, it's got the little pieces that you can pull out, for a wider desk or tabletop, and the same exact hard mount points on all three peripherals. Matter of fact, I haven't double checked this, but it looks the same. Same clamp on this thing too. So, and it's got the carpet gripper on the bottom of the G29 pedal. So that, again, all that stuff is identical. So now let's get on to performance and how it compared to the G27. And we used the iRacing Star Mazda at Okayama for our test bed, our test platform. And first, we ran the G29 and set the force feedback as high as we could without it clipping too much. I mean, we're getting just some spikes.
Yeah, a little minor clipping is no big deal.
Right. And that's how we ran it. And we tried linear and nonlinear, and this is in iRacing again. There's a checkbox for that. And nonlinear seemed to have a little more road feel, and your mileage may vary. You've been running linear on your G27 for a while.
Yeah, and that was after running nonlinear for probably even longer. So some people swear by linear, some by nonlinear. Other people like me are kind of indifferent.
We tried the G29, and out of the gate, it felt very similar to a G27.
Yeah, no, it felt like I was driving a G27 again.
So we plugged in the G27, and again, we had to go back to the old legacy driver, and we started with default settings in that legacy driver. So all the sliders at 100%, which is not the preferred or community recommended settings, or the settings that either of us had run when we were running a G27. So we tried it with that, and it felt a little heavy.
Yeah.
Felt almost, what's the word I'm looking for?
It was a little rougher.
I think the one difference that I noticed right off the bat is this feels a little more, not as smooth turning as the G29.
Okay, I'm glad that wasn't in my head.
No, it's not. It felt rougher to turn, just not as smooth as the G29. But again, we were using those default settings. So then we went back to the community recommended settings, the ones that we've been running for a long time, basically taking off the spring, checking the center spring box, turning that center spring down to 0, and basically letting the game, or sim, iRacing, handle the force feedback. And then it felt, in my opinion, almost identical to the G29.
Yeah,
Smooth things out.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was definitely within that 95% of the way there in terms of similarity.
Yeah, and again, I think the biggest differences are in the paddles, the brake, and the button placement.
Correct.
Other than that, these wheels feel identical to me.
They do.
If I closed my eyes, would you be able to tell, seriously, if you did a blind drive test?
I don't think so.
I don't think I would either.
Yeah, I think the G29 might be a little smoother, but it's not much more.
Yeah, you're getting the same clackety-clack,
Yeah.
as you go over some big bumps, which is the gear drive mechanism. The gears, I'm assuming, kind of slapping against each other. So that really hasn't changed at all. So it seems like since you can't make any adjustments to the G29 in the Logitech gaming software besides degrees of rotation, it seems like it's taken the community settings, preferred settings, and that's what you're getting default. And it's kind of letting the game or the sim provide, what's supposed to be there.
Correct. And well, at least they picked up the community settings.
Yeah.
And not the default G27 settings.
Yeah, which were, again, it definitely wouldn't feel as good. So, something else, shift lights did not work with everything on the G29 yet. So it's like a lot of developers haven't coded.
Which is really surprising.
It is. I mean, this wheel's been in development for a long time.
Yeah, and you would think with such a large company like Logitech that they'd be out there working with the different game makers and get that figured out prior to launch.
Yeah. PS4, I went back and tried it again and tried it with Project Cars in F1 2015. Still had that braking issue where the brake was too sensitive, and I contacted David Greco, who worked on the physics for F1 2015, and he told me to map the clutch for now, and that worked, and was only an issue on the PS4.
Someone asked us during a live show if the crew is compatible on the PS4, and it is not. We tried it and we couldn't even get the game to launch.
So back to the PC. Besides iRacing, we tried it with Assetto Corsa, Dirt Rally, F1 2015, and as mentioned, Project Cars. Assetto Corsa, there was no default G29 profile in game, so we used the G27 defaults. Yeah, you did some more tuning with Assetto Corsa. I just drove the defaults, ran it, felt pretty good, but you did a little more tuning with it.
Yeah, an issue I always had with the G27 was in some cars, once you got to higher speed, we get a lot of wheel shake.
So oscillation.
Oscillation, yeah. And so, exact same thing with the G29. That didn't change. So I had to go in there and turn down some of the road feel settings pretty low or essentially off, and that eliminated that. But one thing that I couldn't eliminate was anytime I was driving a car with ABS and going in with some really hard threshold braking. That ABS would kick in, and ABS is going to vibrate your wheel, and it's supposed to like a real car, but it gets really chattery.
So you get that gear clanking?
Yeah.
So have you driven a car in real life? I would imagine you have. I imagine your VW in the snow, the ABS kicks in.
Oh yeah,
no. You get that.
Yeah, no, and it's really violent, and I want that to some degree, but this was really clanky.
More gear chatter.
Yeah, the gears were really making a lot of sound.
So next up, Dirt Rally, and there was not a default profile for that, so you had to use direct input. The clutch was not supported as an axis. And speaking of which, that's another thing I wanted to talk about really quick. In the Logitech profilers, the clutch was a separate axis, where the G29, the axis basically goes up off of the steering axis. So in Dirt, it was not supported at all, Dirt Rally. And I had the TH8A shifter, so I wasn't able to try that. And basically, I maxed out all the force feedback sliders. It felt pretty good. It
did, yeah. Overall, I liked the feel of the wheel at 150%. It was going over bumps again. It did get pretty chattery, and I brought some of those settings back down a bit, and it felt better.
Yeah, I agree. F1 2015. Actually, I don't think I tried it with F1 2015. You did.
Yeah, I did a fair amount of driving F1 2015, and certainly liked having all the buttons on the wheel. There's a lot of things to play around with at DRS and whatnot, and that was really nice to have that. Even though I will say, when I was playing F1 2015, I found some of the sloppiness in some of the buttons, like the D-pad, you know, even in there and doing some of the wheel settings. And I'm pressing on the D-pad and my setting's going up and then it jumps up to the next line item. And so that was kind of frustrating.
So it wasn't a positive.
It wasn't positive, and I feel like they went a little cheap on the buttons.
So what about the overall force feedback?
Overall force feedback felt pretty good. Only time I really got that chattering was going over rumble strips.
So I see one of your notes, rumble good, rattle bad.
Yeah, having the rattling's not good. I want, like I said, it's a rumble strip. I want to feel rumble. I don't want to feel, and especially hear, rattle.
Right, yeah, I agree. So Project Cars, again, mentioned the shift lights worked. That was fully compatible on the PC. This wheel, and I've seen Logitech marketing, you can get Logitech skins for Project Cars. So they obviously worked closely with Slightly Mad to make this compatible on the PC. Again, the shift lights worked. Defaults felt pretty good. And again, it felt better than me on the PC than it did on the PS4. The D-pad, it worked in all the menus, so basically when you boot up Project Cars on the PC, you can put your keyboard aside and do everything right from the wheel. Actually, I noticed that I couldn't save games, so I had to go to my mouse to like save setups and stuff like that. But overall, it felt pretty good. Now on to the pros and cons, starting with the pros. Compatible with the PS3, PS4, and PC. The new brake mod is also a big pro.
Shifter paddles feel better, shorter throws, and more dampening. It's built by Logitech, so it should be durable just like the G27 and G25 was.
More buttons and a dial on the wheel now. And it's got the same hard mount points as a G27.
And the final pro is that it has nice clamps, so if you don't want to use hard mounts, you can go that route. And now on to the cons. The price for the wheel pedals and then the add-on shifter is $460. And honestly, we would have liked to see that price more around the $300 price point. Also, we would have liked to see a larger diameter wheel, since it's the same size as the G27 and it's not replaceable without modding.
It's got the same force feedback dead zone that the G27 has, and the gear drive has that same noise and or chatter.
It's also not much of an upgrade compared to the G27, except for the PlayStation 4 compatibility. Another con is that the shifter is sold separately, where in the past that came with the G27.
And the final con is that the buttons and wheel are toy-like compared to the competition and even the G27. So there's our pros and cons. John, how about you start with some final thoughts?
I mean, overall, I feel like the G29 is not a bad wheel. I definitely think it's worth looking at if you're out shopping for wheels in this price range. I mean, coming from the G27, I do think it's been dampened slightly as far as how the wheel feels and the shifters, the paddles. The brake pedal is a big improvement. I really like the brake pedal, thought it was really progressive. I like having more buttons on the steering wheel. But I will say, from someone who drove a G27 for 4.5 years, I'm a little disappointed it didn't go farther. It was definitely, I don't know, a slight evolution.
But not a big one.
It's not even, not even a big evolution. And a bigger evolution would have been nice, or even something a little more revolutionary if they would have gone to a different drive motor. Because again, even if they dampen some things, you can still feel those gears.
Yep.
And it's still a G27.
Yep. Rebranded, rebuttoned G27. And I gotta say, the community's been pretty upset with the direction Logitech took this. A lot of it because, you know, they could have made the G27, they could have worked with some of these developers, and the G27 could have been compatible with titles like Project Cars, F1 2015, Drive Club on the PS4. They decided not to go that route and mentioned security chips and all this and that. And I think it was just to come out with the G29. As a matter of fact, they completely backed out of the market, supposedly, on the console. And we found that whole security chip thing was not the case, because Thrustmaster and Fanatic both have older wheels that aren't compatible in the PlayStation 4 menus, but work in Project Cars and F1 2015. The Thrustmaster T500, all the Fanatic lineup works in both of those titles. And the Thrustmaster T500 even works in the Crew and Drive Club. So, yeah, I'm probably as disappointed as the community is. So basically, you're paying, an extra $200 if you buy this whole package just to have PS4 compatibility and a brake mod, and have all the buttons on the wheel.
Correct.
So, we did some price comparisons. Right now, $399.99 on Amazon for this wheel, $59.99 for the shifter. So you're looking at $460 plus tax and shipping, unless you can find one local, which I don't know if they're on the shelves yet, versus $259.99, basically $200 cheaper for the G27, and you get the shifter, stock pedals. Hey, get a brake mod, you're still under $300.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be racing on the PC only, and maybe want to dabble on the PS3, I'd say stick with the G27. If you want to buy a Logitech brand wheel, and I got to say, Logitech is known for durability. You ran yours a lot.
Yeah,
for 4 years.
Zero issues.
Zero issues. So they're known for durability, no question about it. I'm in the same boat as John. I would have liked to have seen more of an evolution on the G29. I would have liked to have seen a belt-driven wheel, maybe the ability to add different rims. Basically just adding buttons, G29 compatibility, or I'm sorry, PS4 compatibility, shortening the throw on the paddles, and a brake mod, not worth $200 to me.
No.
And, with the other offerings out there, I'd say you might want to consider going that direction. So anyway, that being said, I'd like to thank Logitech for sending us this gear. It's a good wheel. I mean, it's not bad. It performs well. And again, if you like Logitech products, and you want to be on the PS4 with it, you should definitely consider it. Price is probably going to come down. We saw that the highest the G27 was $313.
Yeah, that was the highest the G27 ever sold on Amazon. So
I think I've seen them as low as $199.
Yeah, no, I imagine this will come down in price, and if it was more around that $300 price point,
I think it'd be worth it.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a great deal.
Yeah,
and it probably will be. In time. This is it. It's just come out, and I'm sure probably after the holidays, I would guess. Once the holiday push is gone, I think that it's going to be around the $300 range. So that's going to wrap things up. Hopefully you've enjoyed our take on the G29 and the comparisons that we've made to the G27. Thank you for watching. Come join us at our forums. Subscribe to us on our forums. Actually, I don't know if you know this. We've almost got 25,000 members in our forums.
That's pretty amazing.
So lots of community talk going on there. Lots of great stuff going on. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us here on YouTube. And one thing I'd like to say before we go, if you don't like the G29, don't dislike the show. If you liked what we did and what we talked about, please give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, exactly. That's well put, John. So for John Sable, I'm Darren Ganji. We'll see you guys next time.